Well, welcome, Lisa. Thank you so much for being here.
Cheryl, it is awesome to be here. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Well, I am too. And we've already had such a great conversation and been talking about how what we're talking about today is so needed. And just with all the moms that I talk to on a daily basis and our struggle to regulate our own emotions, our struggle with helping our kids regulate their emotions. And that is a huge challenge.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so thank you for being here. This is going to be so good. And I want to start out, though, I love to start out with you sharing a little bit of your story of what led you to where you are today and what you're doing, because you have an extensive background. So I'm fascinated to hear more.
Well, thank you very much. I will try to be brief, but I've been around for a while. So um, I was very fortunate. I began my work experience in human resources and developmental psychology. And when I had children, I had the opportunity to take my HR background and my developmental psychology background and bring it into the early childhood program where my kids were. So I went in and I felt really comfortable running the program, but I very quickly recognized that the curriculum was it wasn't very robust in terms of building community and social engagement. And we were spending a lot of time managing behaviors and fighting fires emotionally and just like environmentally in terms of the dynamics of the children and teachers. And so as I settled into my role in running this school, I started developing I'm a big fan of arts-based learning, and so I developed an arts-based curriculum that involved very creative elements, but also very early on yoga and mindfulness. And this was back in the early 90s. So there wasn't a whole lot of yoga and mindfulness happening in schools. And actually, early childhood programs were really seen as kind of holding patterns for kids until they were old enough to get into real school. So we developed a curriculum where we had weekly yoga classes. The kids were participating in breathing and movement and relaxation techniques and meditation, starting as babies. And yeah, it was amazing. But I recognized that we were putting all of this yummy focus on social emotional learning in the children, but a lot of our teachers, they hadn't had the training, they hadn't had the experience. So we were still feeling these disconnects and this dysregulation. So I expanded it out and I decided to do some certification and skill building for myself so that I could really understand what was going on, because I feel like we have to learn it to teach it, and we have to learn it to know it to teach it. So it requires getting the basics and then practicing and practicing until we feel like we can share those skills with someone else. So I did some training and I started to develop a teacher training program and some materials to really help the teachers to understand what was going on with the kiddos. And we just saw this enormous shift in the sense of connection, in our ability to resolve conflicts, and in the teacher's happiness, as well as in the kids' stability and ability to learn. And everybody became more creative. Everybody became more engaged and more joyful. And it was beautiful. So as my kids got older, and they ended up, when they graduated, when my youngest graduated from high school, I decided that I wanted to go out to more schools and do the work I was doing in my school. So I developed a broader social emotional curriculum based in yoga and mindfulness, and set up a nonprofit so that I could work directly with the schools, do some grant funded programming, and some more charitable contributions in Title I schools, and especially focus on, at the time, special populations, neurodivergent children, and children who had experienced more significant traumas in their youth, and to really uh, expose people who hadn't had any understanding of what it was to these tools. And so that's what I'm doing now.
I love it. Okay. So, gosh, I don't even know where to go next. There's so many great things in there. I guess let's start with, because I think people don't, I mean, we hear now about a lot about mindfulness and we hear about meditation and we know yoga. We've taken yoga classes. But what exactly is mindfulness? Because I know some people are kind of like, ooh, and you mentioned mindfulness versus mind control. And I think that's what some people, they hear that mindfulness and it feels like, oh, I don't know. So what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's interesting because for me, yoga and mindfulness fall under one little umbrella. And to give you a little bit of sort of some of the history of yoga, and the work I do is not spiritually based, but I do like to refer back to the ancient descriptions of what yoga is. And so they say that there are these 8 limbs of yoga, and one is the movements, the postures, what we kind of know as in the yoga studio. And then another couple of layers are these um, qualities of character, like moral and ethical principles. You know, are we going to be kind? Are we going to be caring? Are we going to be aware? And then you get into these spaces. There are 4 different areas of what they call mindfulness. And it's really being able to use the connection through the nervous system to access from the body into the mind these thoughts and feelings and interpretations of our world, and to just watch it and choose what we connect with and respond to.
Mm,
So it's, yeah, and when we can have a connection in the mind and go, oh, I'm watching, I'm allowing, I'm aware, I'm discerning, now I'm deciding, we end up having a lot more power over our experiences.
mhm,
And so, very often as a yoga therapist, I I am able to either take somebody who's really cognitive, who doesn't have a lot of sense of where their body is, and do what we call top down access, and have them start with their thinking and then get into their body, or bottom up, where you are starting with the body and sensations in the body, and then noticing how it goes up into the mind and becomes thoughts and feelings and reactions, and all of it is driven by, managed by, and can be accessed through the nervous system.
yeah, it's crazy how it all works. And I talk a lot to my moms about what are those stories that you're telling yourself. And that is where mindfulness has really helped me. And even anxiety, and somebody that has struggled with anxiety, struggled as a kid with anxiety, the more that I would try not to be anxious, the more I would become anxious. And that's where I think mindfulness for me has helped me, because it's, and on your site, you talk about being aware, paying attention, and accepting things as they are. It doesn't mean that we are happy this is happening, but if we're fighting, it feels like we're fighting against it, which is so much of our tweens and teens. It makes those emotions so much bigger. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I love the way you described it, because I think a lot of people are afraid of this notion of mindfulness because it implies some sort of resigning to what's there. If I acknowledge it's there, then I have to give up or give in or somehow be stuck in it. But it's the opposite. When I say, I'm noticing this flutter in my chest. I'm noticing I'm getting sweaty. These are signs to my body that I'm not regulated, that something's, coming, some change is happening, some sensation, some experience, some story is bubbling up, or some physical thing is happening. But when I can notice those and go, this is what we call anxiety. Now, I wonder what it's from, and I wonder if I need it. And then you start to have this internal assessment, and mindfulness allows you to have the internal awareness, but then the assessment of where's it coming from? Do I want to keep doing it? Am I okay? Maybe I can let go of that and change my breathing. And now, oh, my chest is relaxing. Oh, wait a minute. My shoulders just dropped away from my ears, and I'm feeling I can speak a little more clearly. Oh, there's less of what I would call anxiety because I told myself I can let that go, you
Yeah.
know?
Mhm.
So it's mindfulness is really a powerful tool in giving us the option to know and respond to what we're feeling.
Yeah. What do you think when it came to the school and making such a difference? Was it that it was helping kids and teachers to slow down, to be more aware, more focused? What was that that made a difference?
I'll tell you, for me, the biggest revelation I had in creating this program came with the early forms in schools of mindfulness did not include any movement. And it was with older children. A lot of things were happening with teens and preteens around stilling the mind so that you could pay attention to it. But what I was noticing is in the teens and the preteens, and then into the elementary and the younger ones in particular, was that there's a transition that's needed to get to the stillness. So, what I recognized is we were trying to instantly go to the quiet, still place, which is really hard to do because there's just a lot of stuff going on in there. And if we could identify the sense of energetic dysregulation, like the pounding heartbeat, the sweatiness, the agitation, the tight muscles, the whatever it is that's showing up, if we can identify that and say, oh, I have an energy dysregulation, we can move our bodies to meet that energy and diffuse it. We can actually neutralize the energy and use it to take us to a balanced state. So, what I saw in the classroom when we first started doing mindfulness was sit down and calm down.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No. Why doesn't that does not work? Why doesn't
No,
that work? Why doesn't that? We knew it does, but why not?
right. And I have to say, I mean, we do it especially a lot with our older kids because we think somehow they've magically acquired this capacity to read our minds and to understand when we say stop talking, be quiet, sit down, calm down. That's not worth being upset about. You need to get control of yourself. I love that one. Get control of yourself, because don't you think I would if I could? So
Yeah.
so I think that what 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 we need to do as the adults is we need to recognize when we are dysregulated, and we need to recognize what movement we need to regulate, and then offer practice of those movements to the kids in our world so that we can say, oh, my energy was really big, and now that we've moved, I feel a little bit more calm. I feel like I can access the thoughts and feelings, the stories that are connected to that energy problem, that whether it's too big or too little, because you can have really lethargic, heavy energy, which is just as challenging
Mhm.
as the big energy. I mean, how many times as a mom did you try to get out the door with a kid who just wasn't going?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, many times. Or
Yeah.
won't
So
get
it's
out of bed in the morning. And you got to be somewhere. You don't want them to be late for like the 10th time, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, so that kid that's rolling, struggling out of bed could just be tired,
Mhm.
could be anxious, could have some physiological or emotional things happening. They could have had something happening at school. They could have something they're anticipating happening at school. So if I go in and say, "Come on, come on, come on, get up, get up, get up," they're not going to be able to do that. But if I say, "Let's curl up in a little ball," I call it turtle shell in my book. Let's curl up in our turtle shells. Just take 5 breaths together. We're okay right now. We can do this. One breath at a time. With the next breath, let's stretch a little and see what that feels like. Now, now yawn and say, "Oh, oh, yeah." And then we start to move and we're inviting the energy to rise. We're inviting that, maybe we move a little side to side or we twist a little. Maybe we go back into our turtle shells one more time. But as we come out, we start to awaken. We awaken the nervous system. We're working with the sympathetic nervous system, rise and shine. But we're doing it in this really gentle, aware space. And that's mindfulness, right? I'm mindful of the energy that you need me to bring, and I'm co-regulating. I'm setting my system to a level that's going to meet your system, and I'm bringing you little by little up to this place of a little bit more neutral so that eventually we can both turn and head out that door.
I love that. Wow. Yeah. It's your okay, so that's because I was going to ask you what co-regulation means. So you're doing it with them together and walking them through that and modeling it for them.
Yeah, and I'm not telling them what to do. And this really came out of my early childhood classroom where children didn't have language yet. So sitting there and saying calm down wasn't going to work. And trying to talk them through, you just need to breathe in. I mean, what does that mean? And even for a teenager, even for many adults, if I were to say, just take a deep breath, well, what does that mean? But if I say, breathe with me, breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah, you're doing it and you're doing it with them. And I like how we were talking about it needs to come through us. Like even saying, I was thinking, sure, like, calm down, or whatever. I was laughing and chuckling because that's almost what we're trying to say to ourselves. We're saying it to our kid, but we're saying it to ourselves, but it really doesn't work.
Right? Chances are the dysregulation in our children is either from our own dysregulation or our lack of clarity in expressing what our needs are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I had an interesting experience. I was working at an after school program for challenged girls, and they were preteens. And I was in a gymnasium with them, and we were actually playing a yoga game called it was uh, it was like a musical chairs kind of game. It's called Oceans and Islands, where our yoga mats were these islands. And when the music played, everybody swam, ran around the islands. And then when the music stopped, you got on an island. And the islands would sink. And so I would fold up yoga mats, and they had to collaborate and cooperate and get on these smaller and smaller spaces. And I thought I had done a really great job setting all the expectations and, explaining the rules. Well, we're swimming around and the music stops and they get on an island. And then we swim around again, and a handful of them shoot across this gymnasium and start shooting baskets on the other side of the court. And I could have said, those bad girls, they weren't listening. Look at them. They're never following directions. But instead, I went, uh-oh, what piece did I neglect? Where did I not express clearly what I need for this to be successful? So I went running over. I took the girls that were still on the mats. I said, let's swim over to the other side of the ocean. And we all swam over, and I gathered them in a circle, and I said, I forgot the most important part. That line across the center of this basketball court is the end of the ocean. To go back. So we all went back, and I said, can we try again? And let's make that the end of the ocean. We don't go beyond that. And all of them went, yeah, let's do it again. And we played beautifully, and they did an awesome job. And they were more knit together. And I was more steady when we recognized that it was me who was dysregulated. It was me who didn't communicate clearly. And when I took responsibility for it, we all had a really great time.
It could have gone so differently. You could have gotten really upset because I can see that would be scary when they're all going, now they're shooting baskets. Like the story I would be telling myself is like, oh, they're not being respectful. And
Right. And I've lost control.
yeah, yeah. And they don't like what I'm doing, like, all those things versus what you saw like, oh, it was a communication gap there. And then and the story that I would have told myself if I was you, um, it wasn't true. They all came back.
Yeah. 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 And I can't tell you how many times when I take my expectations out of the mix, how many times I we will come back like that. And it's as simple as when things start to go awry and I start to have that story up, they're not respecting me, they're not paying attention, they just don't care, whatever that story is. I will stop, and without any words, I will start what I call balloon breathing. It's a technique that we use in all of our trainings in all the schools we work in, and it's really simple. Your arms are by your side. Now stretch your arms and sit up tall. Take a
I'm gonna
big
do
breath
it
in.
with her, everybody. You
Yeah,
maybe
everybody do it. So whether you're sitting or standing, feel your feet connected to the earth. Lengthen your spine. Bring your arms by your sides. Now breathe in and let your arms lift up as if you're filling your body up like a balloon. Bring your hands together. You can even look up at them a little, and then breathe out and bring your hands right down through the middle. And let's do that 2 more times. Big breath in, reach up, palms together, breathe out, bring them down. Imagine that balloon filling one more time, and then this slow little tear in the balloon as it empties. You can even make a little sound. Shh. So notice how you feel.
Mm.
So I will, when I'm dysregulated, I will just start to do balloon breaths. And my students will start doing it with me. My private students or in the schools, we will do it until we all get to this place where I can say, hey, I was raising my voice. I was really feeling like I didn't have control, and that didn't feel good to me. So thank you for helping me calm down, and thank you for making a space in which I can talk without yelling. And every single time I tell a student, a child, a client, I'm not having fun, they say, oh my gosh, well, let's change that. Because they don't want me to be upset. They certainly don't want me to be upset with them. And as soon as I acknowledge that I'm off kilter, they go, oh, well, let's change it. They are incredibly empathetic. It's
Wow,
beautiful.
that's beautiful because you're modeling that as well. I mean, we all can feel that way. And then it's not directed at them that they're the problem.
Right.
And it's also
Right.
the word that's coming to me is humble. There's
Yeah.
humility there that I need to do this, and I didn't like the way that I was responding, and I'm not having fun. But
Yeah.
this isn't
It didn't
fun
feel
for me.
good.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. So, how do you think, and I can see why it's so needed that teachers need these skills. It makes so much sense. I mean, they're doing a tough job, especially these days.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I very first started bringing this into schools 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago now, um, it was, oh, just one more thing we have to do. Isn't it enough that we have to do all this math, do all this English, do all these specials, one more thing? And what I realized is uh, I could change the way we trained it. And instead of saying this is a tool you will use with its students, it's this is something to help you feel good in where you are and what you do. This is something to help you reconnect to the child within you, to heal the wounds within you, to support the needs within you so that you bring your best person every day into that classroom. And that self models and practices with the students in such a way that, as we've seen in literally hundreds of classrooms across the country, as soon as those teachers take that step towards self care, and self care doesn't mean going and getting a candy bar and a soda. Self-care means saying, what do I feel and how can I belong in a space of regulation? Every time it makes the classrooms run more efficiently. And
Mm.
the teachers start to add it in to our morning meeting and greeting or into the transition from one subject to another. And, I worked in a high school, an all boys school in the DC area. And I came in as part of the PE program because in a lot of people's minds, yoga is PE.
Mhm.
And we did these mindfulness practices. We did movement, big, heavy movement, because these guys had a lot of pent up stuff. So we did lots of holding poses and moving the breath and releasing and feeling the energy, and then letting it settle. And we did a lot of breathing and meditation practices. Well, the school started to notice that on the days that I was in PE, the students' afternoon classes were much more productive.
Wow.
And so they started to say, well, maybe we should do some of these practices as they start the class. So we built a little routine, a sequence that we trained the teachers in so that the teachers could go and say, before we get started, let's all take a couple of breaths. Let's stretch a little. Let's get up and move some spinal energy. And then they would settle in and everyone was a lot more productive.
Yeah, I bet. And present and connected to yourself and more in the moment, and then releasing all of that, whatever that tension is that you're holding in your body.
Right. And then what it does is it resets the students, it resets the teacher. So then the teacher becomes this calm, what we call in the book, the calm, assertive pack leader, the calm, assertive, loving pack leader who can say, we're good, right? And that's
I
what I want parents of teens to be.
I love that calm, assertive pack leader.
Yeah,
Because
calm, assertive,
don't,
loving pack leader is
yeah,
my ultimate.
loving,
Yeah,
calm, assertive, loving pack
yeah,
leader.
yeah.
That is great. I like that. I'm always looking for some new, fresh language. That's good. Assertive, yeah, because it doesn't mean you just lay down and you just, I mean, sometimes we need a nap, but it's assertive. So say more about that because I don't think that we think, what does that look like? The assertive piece in mindfulness.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people mistake the use of assertive as aggressive.
Hmm.
And assertive is confident, clear, and capable. Assertive is what children especially need
Hmm.
because they need us to be capable. They need us to be clear. They need us to be confident. Because if I go to you and say, maybe if you take this breath, it'll help you, but I don't know, you're going to be really confused. Okay, you're telling me to do this, but you don't really feel like it might work. So why would I buy in if you're not buying in? So assertive is, I understand a need. I understand where I am. And I want you to know that I'm here with you. And consistent. I think that's the other thing. Assertive is consistent. So, in terms of mindfulness, assertiveness is necessary in focusing, focusing the mind. Where am I directing my attention? If I want to be consistently and clearly directing my attention, I have to be assertive with myself. I have to say, okay, this is where we are now. This is where we're going to go.
And that goes back to what you were saying about thinking about what do I want and
Yeah.
being clear about those expectations. Like when the
Yeah.
girls, setting that this is where the line is.
Yes, exactly. And I'm not being authoritarian, which is also another confusion around assertive. And I'm not demanding. I'm saying, hey, what if we change this engagement? What if we change these parameters? And and I think this would work better for us. And that's assertive. I took control of the situation. I didn't try to take control of the people.
Mm-hmm. There's a big difference there.
Yeah. And it feels much better as an adult when I can take control of a situation rather than trying to control the person. It goes so much better.
It sure does. How do you do that? Do you say this is what I want? This is the expectation here. I'm sure it looks different in a lot of different forms, but I think that would be helpful to the moms to just what might that look like?
Well, I think it goes back to modeling and it goes back to building the language and the tools. Because one of the very first things I do when I'm working, especially in a group setting, but even individually with children and adults, is I I go back to where I was telling you there's this kind of moral and ethical principles thing. I set class agreements, and my class agreements are super simple. They don't involve a lot of words, and they always involve an energetic movement and a breath because that's where I know I can make shifts. So, my class rules, my very basic class rules are, and we can do it together if you want. Reach your arms out, take a breath in and extend your arms back, lift your chest up, open yourself up, and imagine you're gathering as much goodness and kindness and power and respect and love in the world, and bring it into your heart. As you breathe out, wrap your arms around yourself. Love yourself. Now spread it out to everyone else and everyone else. Breathe in, breathe out, and bring it back in. Breathe in, reach out, gather it up, and bring it into your heart. So you're loving and respecting everyone else and yourself. Now wrap your arms here and give yourself a little shake or a squeeze. And on your mind or out loud, say, I love me.
I love me.
So we're going to remember that as we go through our practice today. We're going to remember to be kind to ourselves and to be kind to each other and respect our space. And that's going to help us feel a little bit more in control, a little bit more joyful. And the other thing we do is we rub the tops of our ears. There's a little acupressure point at the top of your ear, thumb on the inside, finger on the outside. And if you rub there, it's a reminder that we're going to listen. And while I, right?
I love this when I get a massage and they do the
And
top
that's,
ears.
well, what they're doing is there's an acupressure point that goes into the pineal gland, into the master control center of your body and brain, and it sends a message of calm focus. So this is what you want to do like three o'clock in the afternoon when you are dying to have another cup of coffee, but you got to make it through this meeting and you know caffeine makes you sleepless. So you're going to rub your ears. But in my classes, that's listen. And who are we listening to? We're listening to each other and we're listening to our inner knowing, our intuition. So I don't need to tell you what behavior I expect because you're going to listen. You're going to use your intuition and that inside knowing. And this all ties to the vagus nerve, to the nervous system, the gut brain. And what happens is over time, this notion of being kind and loving yourself and listening on the inside and the outside, I can go around a room and I can just go like this, and it's a reminder to me and it's a reminder to whoever I'm with. Let's remember to listen. I can be somewhere and go like this, and I can center myself. I can wrap my hands around my arms, pull my shoulders away from my ears, and I'm grounded. I'm secure. And I'm sending a message to my nervous system that I am safe. And then my nervous system is doing all it can to regulate and slow down my heartbeat and relax my breathing and bring me into this focused, alert, calm space.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So I use these class agreements to say, okay, this is our basic standard, right? This is how we're going to remember that we're in this together. And I can always come back to the class agreements throughout that group experience or in my one-on-one therapy sessions, and that's where that languaging of, you know, I don't feel like I'm having fun anymore, because we've disconnected on one of those agreements. And what I really try to do in every interaction with everyone, and I'm most challenged with my own family members because we we know they are unconditionally there with us, and so we press the limit a little more. But what I try to do with everyone is appreciate that they're doing their best
Mm-hmm.
and create a space of of collaboration in acknowledging when we're out of sync. And and and, and again, a lot of it is practicing ourselves, and when it starts to go awry, giving yourself some sort of physical reminder. There's a mudra in my book. A mudra is a hand gesture, and you tuck your thumbs into your fingers. It's called Adi Mudra. And you place your hands face down on your lap with your thumbs tucked into your fingers wrapped around. It's super grounding. And when you feel grounded, you feel safe. When you feel safe, you're willing to relax your expectations. You're willing to let some of the stories go. And so sometimes I'll just tuck in, but I have to practice that before I'm going to teach someone else. And then when I teach them, we practice together. And by the way, we don't practice it in the heat of the moment. We practice it when we're calm and happy and connected and laughing, and we set aside this joyful time to reconnect with ourselves side by side, and then we bring it, when we need it in the crisis mode. And that's why we all need it, because if one of us has a tool and the other one doesn't have the tool, it's really hard to get it to work. And
Hmm.
so we all practice this together all the time. And then we start to be able to share it. And I've been in classrooms where I've seen a student go to another student and say, maybe you need a balloon breath right now.
I love that. You know it's working when they say that.
Yeah, yeah,
Supporting a friend. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
yeah.
So these are such great skills, and just thinking that we need to be patient with ourselves in the process, but practicing these things. And the more that we can practice, I have found the easier that they do become. Now I have some more tools in my tool belt. You've gotten me really thinking about how I can help the moms do this. So share your book, share where they can find you. If they want to reach out to you and have you come to their school, or just tell them what is available to them through everything that you're doing.
Well, I would love to see folks and hear from folks. So absolutely. My website is createcalm.org. And the book is Creating Calm in Your Classroom. It's a tribute to my roots of early childhood and social emotional curriculum building. But I might suggest that every learning space, including home and out there in the real world, is a classroom. So the tools in here are super practical and very simple to do one or a sequence. They even identify whether it's high energy or low energy, where you're going to do it, how you're going to do it, when you want to do it. And there's lots of info on there too about the nervous system and some of the things we were talking around co-regulation, and modeling. And you can get the book actually on Amazon. So if you just search for Creating Calm in Your Classroom, and I'll make sure you have a link that you can drop in the description of this conversation too.
Okay, wonderful. And then, so Creating Calm, your website, that's a non-for-profit. They can go there. They can reach out to you. Is your email on there? I believe it is.
It is, but also it's Lisa at createcalm.org.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing with us and all the work that you're doing that's just making a huge impact in our homes and our classrooms and our lives. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And I have confidence that all of you out there are going to be a little more calm, a little more joyful, and a little more healthy because you deserve it.